The night it happened, I wasn't looking for trouble. I was carrying takeout and anniversary flowers, feeling stupid for how excited I was. I found Mira on a video call, laughing at something Danish said, her voice softer than it ever was with me. She saw me in the doorway and didn't even lower it. "You're being so dramatic right now," she said to the screen, half laughing, while my throat closed up. I stood there like an idiot holding flowers, waiting for her to notice I was crying. She never did. That was the part one couldn't shake. I told her I was fine. I wasn't. 6 years in, and I genuinely didn't know if I was losing my mind or finally seeing clearly. Her phone got a new passcode that week. She started working late, on nights her office was already dark by 7. I know because I drove past once, hating myself for checking. I almost deleted the whole idea from my head twice. Then I'd remember her laugh, easy and warm, aimed at someone who wasn't me, and the doubt would come rushing back harder than before. His name was Danish. I found it on a group photo she forgot to untag, his arm loose around a chair she was sitting in. Nothing damning, really, just two co-workers at some office thing. I almost apologized to her in my head for even looking. But that night kept replaying, her face lit up while mine fell apart, and I couldn't make the two versions of her fit together. So instead of asking her outright and risking another eye roll, I started just watching. Quietly. Like a stranger studying his own house. I gave myself 2 weeks before deciding anything real. I kept a cheap notebook in my gym bag, dates and small details. Nothing dramatic. A hotel app one didn't recognize. Mileage that didn't match her stories. A girl's night photo with a man's shoes visible by the door. Some nights I felt ridiculous, like a jealous husband inventing a mystery. Other nights I'd find one more inconsistency and feel sick all over again. I wasn't hunting for proof of an affair yet. I think I was just trying to prove to myself I wasn't crazy. By the end of week 1 I had a folder, screenshots, a restaurant receipt for a place we'd never been, charged on a card statement I wasn't supposed to see. I didn't cry over it, which scared me a little. I'd already used up my crying in that doorway. What was left felt colder, and I didn't love who I was becoming, staying up at 1 a.m. cross-referencing timestamps like some kind of amateur detective. My best friend told me to just ask her. I told him I would. I didn't. I wasn't ready to hear an answer I could survive. I reached out to someone who worked near Danish's building, a cousin of a friend, nothing official, and asked, as casually as I could manage, if he ever mentioned Mira. He paused too long before answering. "Yeah, they're close," he said. "Like, people talk about it." I said thanks and hung up before my voice could crack. I sat in my car in a parking lot for maybe 20 minutes doing nothing, just staring at the steering wheel. Somehow hearing it from someone else made it real in a way the screenshots hadn't. Mira got sweeter around week 2, and that's when it actually hurt the most. She cooked the chicken thing I liked. Unprompted. She left a note in my bag. She said, "I love you," one night in that old soft voice from before we were married, and for 1 second I almost forgot everything in the folder. I almost wanted to be wrong. I hated that part of myself, that even then, some piece of me was still hoping. I kissed her cheek, said I loved her too, meant it and hated meaning it, and went upstairs. She left her laptop open one evening, still logged into her email, while she showered. I stood in the hallway for a full minute telling myself not to look, that this was a line, that if I crossed it I couldn't pretend to be the reasonable one anymore. Then I thought about the doorway again, her laugh, and I stopped pretending I was reasonable. There it was, 4 months of messages, a conference that was actually a resort booking for 2. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt like I'd swallowed something heavy and cold. I didn't confront her that night. I waited until Sunday, which felt insane in hindsight, sitting across from her at our own kitchen table like we were about to discuss vacation plans. I asked her, calmly, if there was anything she wanted to tell me first. She looked at me for a long second. "Why are you asking me that?" she said, and her voice already had the crack in it. I didn't answer. I just waited. When she finally said his name out loud, it didn't feel like winning. It felt like the floor actually moving. I opened the folder page by page and watched her go pale, then defensive, then something closer to scared. "You've been spying on me for 2 weeks, she said, like that was the crime. I told her, quieter than I expected my own voice to be, that she'd laughed at me on speakerphone while I stood there falling apart, and I needed her to understand I hadn't forgotten that, not for one single day of those 2 weeks. She didn't have a response for that. For the first time since it started, neither of us said anything for a long time. The lawyer stuff that followed felt strangely boring after everything. Paperwork, disclosures, a mediator asking us both to stay civil. Mira tried to talk her way back a few times, and honestly, some nights I almost let her, which is not something I'm proud of. Betrayal doesn't erase 6 years overnight, whatever people say. But every time I softened, I'd remember the folder, the receipts, the 4 months I didn't know about, and I'd go back to being someone who could sign the papers without shaking. Word spread the way it always does. Her sister called me crying, apologizing for something that wasn't hers to apologize for. I heard secondhand that Danish's wife found out too, though I honestly didn't feel as satisfied about that as I thought I would. Mira lost the version of herself people used to admire, the composed one. I lost 6 years I can't get back no matter how organized my folder was. Neither of those things felt like winning, exactly. They just felt like what happened. Sometimes I still think about that doorway, her laughing, me crying, and how neither of us said anything true for 2 more weeks after that. People ask if I regret being so methodical instead of just screaming at her that night. Honestly, some days I do. Screaming might have felt cleaner. But I think some part of me needed proof I could hold in my hands, something undeniable, because for a long time I didn't trust my own memory of that laugh. I still hear it sometimes. I don't think that part ever fully goes away.